Hey everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. You guys sent in this episode from Temple's Table, episode 8. It's all about serving God.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a deep dive into that.
Okay.
See what this particular source has to say about serving God. And it's pretty cool. It's kind of set up in a question and answer format, and it's pulling directly from Scripture.
Oh, nice.
So we're going to look at all that stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a topic that spans many different traditions and beliefs, this whole idea of serving God.
Right off the bat, this episode says serving God, it's not an option, it's a requirement. And they back that up with Deuteronomy 13.4, which is all about following God wholeheartedly and obeying him.
Yeah. I mean, that's that word must is pretty powerful. You see that a lot in, religious teachings, that there's a sense of obligation, even complete devotion.
Yeah, they're not messing around.
No.
But okay, so let's get down to what does serving God actually mean in this context?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It can mean so many different things to different people. But this source gives us a concrete example.
Okay.
With Matthew 6:24. It's that idea that you can't serve two masters. You can't serve both God and money.
Can't serve two masters. I feel like that's a good lesson just in life in general.
Oh, absolutely.
When we try to do too much and we end up,
Yeah. Like, where do you put your energy and your focus?
Yeah. So it's about commitment, prioritizing, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's a choice, but it's also more than just a choice. Because they also say it's a command.
Yes.
Right.
And they use Joshua 22.5, which links serving God with loving God and obeying his commands. So we're already starting to see how service is tied to love and action.
Right, and this is where it gets really interesting. They use a really powerful metaphor with Romans 12, 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah.
Where they talk about offering your body as a living sacrifice.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. Going beyond just doing good deeds, it really speaks to a kind of internal transformation.
Yeah. Becoming a living sacrifice.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense. How do they think someone actually does that?
Well, it's a lot about surrendering your ego and your desires and allowing yourself to be an instrument of God's will, which gets into that idea of what is a good life that we see come up over and over.
Oh, yeah.
Just living in a way that reflects God's values.
Yeah, so it's way beyond just volunteering at the soup kitchen once a month or something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's really embodying your faith in everything you do.
Wow.
And they don't stop there. They actually go on to explore the communal aspect of service.
Right. Using Romans 12, 10 through 13, they talk about the idea that, we're all in this together. We're called to be devoted to one another and to help those in need, to practice hospitality. It's this whole idea that serving God, it's not just a solo mission.
No, it's a community thing. Most faiths have that idea of a connection between people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then the source ties this all back to that idea of blessings.
Yeah. Using Exodus 23, 25 and 26, they connect worshiping God with getting blessings, like good health and prosperity.
Right. Because it's that bigger picture that serving God isn't just self-sacrifice. It's about aligning yourself with something that can bring good things into your life. Living in accordance with God's will, that can bring fulfillment.
Okay, so we've got serving God as a requirement.
Yes.
A choice, a command. It's about aligning yourself with God, becoming a living sacrifice, serving others, and ultimately being blessed for it.
It's a lot.
What stands out to you so far?
I have to say that living sacrifice concept really is something, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of challenging, even a little bit uncomfortable, but it really does make you think about what it means to live a life that's completely devoted to something larger than yourself.
Right, and this source material keeps on going with that. It actually gets into some specific questions about serving God, which we are going to explore next.
All right, so this source has a whole Q&A section.
Okay.
And it starts with this big question that comes straight from Micah 6.7. What does it actually take to please God? And, it uses this interesting language. It talks about thousands of rams and rivers of olive oil.
Oh, wow.
Almost hinting that it's not really about those big, showy gestures.
Right. It makes you think.
Yeah.
Is it about material offerings?
Yeah.
Or is there something deeper? I feel like everyone's kind of wondered that at some point.
And this source answers that question with Mark 12, 30 to 32.
Okay.
Which says, Love for God and love for your neighbor are like the two most important commandments.
Okay.
So it all goes back to that idea that everything comes from love, right?
Oh, interesting.
Like obedience and service. Those things are all rooted in love.
Yeah, and they kind of keep circling back to that.
Yeah.
Like we're building up this whole understanding of what serving God actually means.
It's true. It's like adding layers to this whole idea.
Yeah.
And then it gets even more specific. They bring up Matthew 22, 37 to 39.
Okay.
Which talks about loving God with your whole heart, soul, and mind.
So it's not just a casual, hey, what's up, God?
No.
It's like serious commitment.
It's all in.
What does that even look like in your everyday life?
Right. Like, how do you actually live that way? It's about integrating that love into literally every part of your life. You know, your thoughts, your feelings, all your actions, all your choices.
Wow.
Everything should reflect that love.
It's almost like mindfulness.
Oh, yeah.
But instead of being mindful of the present moment, it's like you're being mindful of God in every moment.
I like that. And then the source brings up Philippians 2, 9 to 11, which is a really powerful verse.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one.
It's about the exaltation of Christ.
Okay.
Every knee shall bow before him. It gives you that sense of like humility.
Right, recognizing that there's something bigger than you.
Yeah. And historically, that verse has been super important in Christian theology, you know, affirming the divinity of Christ.
Right.
Really saying, okay, this is where he stands in the faith.
It's interesting how those kind of theological ideas are woven into this whole idea of serving God.
Because it's all connected. Then they bring up Romans 10, dead 9, emphasizing that it's not enough to just believe in your heart.
Yeah.
You have to actually declare Jesus as Lord.
So you have to say it out loud.
Yeah, like make your faith visible.
Right.
Put it into action.
I like that.
And to really make that point, you know, they bring in John 14, got 9, where seeing Christ is presented as the same as seeing the Father.
So by understanding Christ, you can better understand God.
It's a path to a more profound connection, yeah. And that verse has caused so much discussion over the centuries, you know, trying to understand the relationship between Jesus and God.
One verse can spark so much debate.
It's true. And the source just keeps going, looking at what it means to please God using a few other verses.
Of which ones?
Well, they mentioned John 8, 29, where Jesus says he always does what pleases God.
Oh, okay.
And 1 Peter 1, 14 to 15, which is about living a holy life.
So they're really building this whole picture.
Right. They're saying, okay, this is what a life devoted to God actually looks like.
Okay.
And after exploring all these different things, they go back to that original question from Micah, you know?
What pleases God?
Exactly. And they offer an answer from Psalm 51, 16 to 17.
What's that one say?
It says, a broken and contrite heart.
Oh, wow.
It's about humility.
So not outward actions or anything.
Yeah, it's about wanting to follow God's will, being open to change.
That idea that it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Totally. Serving God isn't about reaching some perfect state. It's about always learning and changing.
And realizing that you need God's help.
Exactly. Being open to his guidance.
Wow, this has been such a cool exploration of this idea.
So many different perspectives.
So what's next? So we've talked about how this episode of Temple's Table frames serving God as a requirement, as a choice, as a command. We've talked about all these ideas of becoming a living sacrifice and aligning yourself with God, all these different things.
It's very thorough. They really emphasize a holistic approach.
Yeah. What really stood out to me was that they use scripture to back all this stuff up.
Oh, for sure.
Like they're not just saying, this is what we believe.
Right.
It's, this is what we believe and here's why. Like, here's the proof.
Exactly. It's all connected. The inner transformation, the outward actions, really committing to living a life that follows God's will.
Yeah, it's really multifaceted. Which brings us to our last big question here. This source talks a lot about complete devotion to God.
Right.
But like, how does that even work in the real world?
The age-old question. I mean, think about it. We're constantly bombarded with distractions, demands, priorities.
How do you balance your spiritual commitments with your job, your family, your friends, even just your own goals?
It's tough, especially in a culture that tells us to always be striving for more.
Yeah. Like, buy this and do this and be more successful.
Yeah, how do you stay grounded in your faith when you're surrounded by all that noise?
How do you keep up that devotion without burning out?
I think it's a constant process, right? It's checking in with yourself, figuring out what truly matters, and reminding yourself to focus on those things.
And it's going to be different for everyone, right?
Absolutely. Maybe it's finding those little moments during the day to connect with your faith.
Like a quick prayer.
Yeah. Or setting aside some time for reflection.
Right.
Maybe doing some service for others, whatever works for you.
There's no right answer.
There isn't. It's about finding what helps you live a life that feels authentic, a life that's in line with your values.
And it's not about being perfect.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Right.
It's about striving to do your best, to live in a way that shows your love for God.
Even with all the messiness of life.
Yeah, exactly.
Well said. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive on serving God, as explored in this episode of Temple's Table.
It's been a fascinating discussion.
It really has. We hope you learned something new, and maybe even gotten inspired to think about these ideas in your own life.
Keep asking those questions.
Keep exploring different perspectives. That's how we learn. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time.